Hi and welcome to another Motion Mile After Effects tutorial. It's Mackenzie Criswell here. We've got another new motion graphics design to take a look at. Alright, so we'll jump right into this one. A new composition is what we'll need. So composition, new composition, and we'll do 1920 by 1080p, 24 frames a second, and we'll call this universe. Okay, so new composition, and let's see, what do we, first we need a couple of new solids. So we'll make it one new solid, and we want this one to be black. Okay, and then we'll get another solid, and we also want this one to be black, and we'll call this one stars. And then in here we'll put a new camera, 50 millimeter, yeah, just camera. Okay, and we're going to be using the effect Trapcode particular. You can, of course, get a free trial of that. Try it out, see if you like it. And I believe you can buy individual render license if you contact Red Giant. But this will be the plugin that we're using to create some of the star effects that you have seen in the original design. So what we'll do is right up here at the emitter behavior setting, by default it's set to continuous. And what we want to do is set it to explode. And I'm using Trapcode particular version 2.5 here. And this is actually a new feature there. Basically, what's going on right now, if we take a look, is it's just kind of emitting particles over over the entire length of the composition consistently, hence continuous. And if we change it to explode, what it'll do is just emit particles once, and that'll be it, just kind of a burst. And in the 2.5 version of Trapcode particular, we can set it to just explode. But if you do not have 2.5, still rocking version 2 or even version 1 maybe, what you can do is bring up the particles per second here at the very beginning, push on the keyframe, the stopwatch, so you'll keyframe that at whatever the value is, and then let's see, preview, go forward one frame and set it to 0. And then if we take a look, what will happen is it will do the same thing, just explode some particles out. Just this way, what you'll have to remember to do is to, whenever you want to change the amount of particles, you'll have to come back to the very first frame to make that happen. So if you're not using 2.5, that'll be your setup. But of course, if you are using Trapcode version 2.5, the setup's even easier. Just hit continuous, change it to explode. And we're going to go ahead and create a ton of particles. We'll turn this up as much as we can. I think it goes up to 1 million. If you've ever been messing around in this effect and wondered what 1 million particles looks like, there it is. But what we want to do is change the emitter type from point to box. And let's see here. And what we'll do is we'll bring up the emitter size to quite a bit here, maybe 25,000. And same thing on the X and the Y. So this to about 25,000. And on the emitter size Z, let's see. Just hit some 9s. Okay. So now we have some stars, and what we'll do is we want to set the velocity to 0 so that our stars will be kind of static. And then if you'll notice here, at a certain point in the composition, the stars kind of all die off. And so what we'll do is we'll come down to the particle setting here, and we'll increase the life to about 20 seconds, or the life to about 20 seconds. And that'll make sure that our stars don't die. And we'll add a little bit of randomness here, about 20 or 25, so that some of our particles will have a little bit more or less life, so a few of them might actually die off before the end of the composition. And just to make sure that that looks good when they do, we'll change the opacity over life here, and we'll use this ramp preset so that they will fade out over their life. And it looks good. Maybe we'll just increase the life to about 30 so that less of them will fade out. And all right, looks nice. And as you can see, our first frame is actually empty. So what we'll do is we'll trim the comp to get rid of that first frame, or actually the first couple of frames. And okay, that'll look good. And then what we'll do is, what we want to do is just kind of create the basic animation of pushing through the star field, I guess. So what we'll do is we'll come down to the camera, hit transform, and on the position, what we want to do is go back maybe negative 20,000. Is we want to go back in Z space a whole lot, almost as much as it'll let us. Let's try negative 25,000 maybe. Okay, so almost to where we can't see the stars. Okay, that's a good point. And then we'll keyframe that position, come forward to about 6 seconds or so in the comp, and set this to about negative 500 maybe. And the way that we can make sure that we have it set at the right point is we'll do a layer new solid, and we'll just make it white. And if we go ahead and just kind of draw a little pin shape here and then make it 3D, what that'll do is go to the 0 point. Okay, so, and what this will do is represent kind of the default position for 3D objects. And so if we come out a little bit, that'll be a good position. So we'll kind of soar through this star field and get to the flat solid here at the end. And we can go ahead and delete that. And I guess what we want to do now is just actually create a few more stars. There's a million of them, but that seems like not enough. So what we'll do is we'll just make a copy of this star layer here. And now we have 2 million, but half of them are on top of each other. So we'll come down to the random seed setting here and turn that up. And those will be in a different position. And we might even just want a few more stars. You can never really have too many. I don't know how many stars there actually are in reality, but I think 3 million seems like a pretty small number. Okay, so now we have a decent star field. And what we'll do is we'll turn on some motion blur for everything. And so now as we move through this star field, we get some nice motion blur. Let's see if we can preview that. Let's see, I'll lower the render resolution. And we've got some nice movement there. I realize it might be a little bit tricky to see if you're watching on YouTube or on the Motion Mile site. So what I'll do so you can see it a little bit better while we're designing is I'll create a new solid here, and I'll make it an adjustment layer. And if I grab the, and then I'll grab a curves effect, and I'll just bring up the stars a little bit. So hopefully you can see better. And this is way brighter than we'll want to render at, but hopefully you'll be able to see it now. And we get some nice motion blur, some nice stars kind of heading into the foreground here. And what we'll do with the camera is if we hit R, we can bring up the rotate. And if we also hold down Shift and hit U, we can bring up the position keyframes. And we'll set the rotation, the Z rotation. We'll keyframe it with the position. And then if we come here to the beginning, we'll just turn it back about negative 360 maybe the whole thing. And now it will kind of rotate and zoom in at the same time and really give us some interesting looks. Okay, so now we have kind of the star field animation, and we want to create our title now. And it's actually pretty easy to do. We'll put some new text in here, and we'll call this universe. We'll leave the color of the text to black, and then we'll change the stroke color to white. And let's go ahead and make this, we'll align this to the center, and then make this 3D. So what we'll get is, if we come to the end of the composition, we'll get a nice title. And let's see, we'll go ahead and scale it down a little. And then with this camera animation, once we get to the title, what we'll do is we'll come back to the camera here, and we'll have it continue to move in. So it'll kind of, we'll get rid of our title. And then we'll trim the comp right at the point where this goes out of frame. And there's our title. Let's see, we'll come back to the text here. And if we go ahead and just change our rendering mode to our blending mode, to add, what we'll get is a nice kind of wireframe look on the text. And let's see, we'll go ahead and render in full resolution again. And the way that we're getting this nice look, in case you didn't notice, is we're just adding a white stroke around the edge to give it a nice look. Maybe we'll decrease this to about, yeah, that'll look nice. And then what we'll do is make a copy of this text layer here and push it back a little bit in Z space. Maybe turn down the opacity to about 60. And that way we'll get kind of a nice 3D text, add a little bit more depth with this design. And yeah, looks really, really great here. And this is actually the basic design. This is a great looking design, but it's incredibly simple, which is why I wanted to make a tutorial about it. You can kind of see the animation a little better if we do it like this. And so what we want to do now is just to add a little bit more depth to the scene. We're going to add some lights, and with the lights, a couple of flares. So let's see here. What we'll do, turn this off, and let's see, we'll create another new solid, and we'll call this flare. Doesn't matter what color it is, and we'll grab Video Copilot Optical Flares. You can also use something like Null Light Factory, or even there's a default kind of flare plugin inside of After Effects. You just won't get as good of flares with that. With Null Light Factory, you will, and that's a pretty good plugin. And we're changing the blending mode to add so that our flare will show up. And then what we want to do is just create a couple of point lights. So we'll do layer, new light, and we want this point light here. And what we'll do is we'll line this up kind of towards the bottom of this text as kind of an accent. And we'll come to the flare settings and set the positioning type to track lights. And what that'll do is then track the lights and show up on them. And let's see, we'll come to the light here. If we hit T, we can lower the intensity of the light, and that will in turn kind of lower the brightness of the flare. And as you can see, as we mess with the light, our text is kind of picking up on it and letting the light cast some shadows on it. And normally that would be what we want with a 3D design. But in this case, what we want to do is actually select both of these text layers here and come to Material Options and turn Accept Lights and Accept Shadows off, so that the text will remain kind of independent and won't be affected by these lights. Okay, looks nice. We'll go ahead and hop into optical flares here for a second and try to find a nice kind of digital space looking flare. So we come to light. Whenever you're looking for some kind of natural, but at the same time kind of artificial, I guess, kind of looks, a good section to go in optical flares is to this light category. And let's see, so we'll come to the sun glint, or maybe we'll do this real sun effect here. That looks nice. Yeah, that looks good. And then we'll grab the center position, move it out of there. And that does look nice. Maybe that's not really what we wanted though. Let's try maybe try the sun glint, maybe? That'll be... Ah, yeah, there we go. We want some nice artifacts on the flares is what we're looking for, largely here. And these lights are independently 3D, so they will show up and not show up as you move through the composition, as you can see here. So let's see. Go ahead and reset this curves effect, and then just add a little bit of a grade here. And what we're doing with the color grade is not necessarily styling it in any way, but just kind of adding a little bit of color to enhance the stars and punch them out a bit. So it looks good. Okay. And then if we come to the light and bring down the color option, what we can do is actually change the color of the light. Let's see. So that's kind of a nice look. And now what we'll want to do is periodically kind of come through the composition and add some lights all over the place. So here's a light kind of here at the end. Let's see, we'll create another new light. And let's move it out in Z space quite a bit. Let's see. We'll move it over, and up. And let's see, and we'll change that, which will just be white. If we kind of take a look there, that'll be a nice look. Let's see. Add another new light. And if we bring up the position, we'll again want to just push it really far back in Z space. Let's see, it'll come all the way out here. And let's make this one really, really hot. Kind of a nice orangish red color. Give that a shot. Oh, that's a little too hot. Let's try that. Maybe something like that. Okay, that'll do the trick. And this is kind of how it'll work. You'll just want to periodically put lights in the composition. If you want to cheat a little bit, you can actually grab some of the lights from the template and just copy and paste them in there. Command-C, Command-V, and you'll get a few more lights here in the composition throughout. So some really nice looks, really nice flares. And then one final thing that we'll do is we'll come to this text layer here. And at the point where it's fully, or we've kind of arrived at the text, we want the opacity to be at 100%. Just hit T to bring that up. And what we'll do is we'll keyframe that. And as you can see, we're still pretty far away and we're kind of catching the edges of the text. And we don't really want to do that. So what I'll do is I'll just set the opacity to 0. So it'll kind of still appear as if we're zooming in to see it, but we'll also kind of fade in so we won't be, way out here and see the outlines of the text. And just add a little bit more, I guess, mystery to the design. It just looks better that way, I guess. And yeah, so that's it. Super simple design, but looks amazing. Hope you liked this tutorial. If you did, feel free to check out more great motion graphics tutorials at motionmile.com. But that's it for this one. See you next time.